Good afternoon, and welcome to Consular Conversations Live, hosted here at the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica. We're here to talk about immigration visa documents and how to submit them to the consular section when requested. Today, we're going to be joined by two of my colleagues, Kayana and April, who work in the Immigrant Visa unit here at the U.S. Embassy. Remember that you can always follow us at US Embassy JA on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. For additional information, you can always visit jm.usembassy.gov, or you can visit travel.state.gov for general information. Please remember that we do this event once every month, every third Wednesday of the month. So next month, we will be talking about how to avoid fraudulent applications on May 15th at the regular time at 1 p.m. So without further ado, I just want to welcome my colleagues again. Kayana, April, it's great to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do in the Immigrant Visa unit and the general highlights that you have for when someone is going through the immigrant visa application process?
My name's April, and I'm a consular officer at the U.S. Embassy Kingston, and at this time, I work in the Immigrant Visa unit as an adjudicator.
My name is Kayana Hilton-Smith. I work in the consular section in the Immigrant Visa department.
So we're going to open today by saying once you get approval for your case from NVC, you're also going to be provided with some additional information about uploading your documents. When you upload your documents for your visa interview, you're going to go to the Consular Electronic Application Center, or the CEAC is what it's more commonly known as. Once you go to the CEAC, you'll be instructed on which documents you need to upload based off of your visa type. However, just know that for any person applying for an immigrant visa, there are some basic documents that you must upload, which include your passport biographic page, a copy of your own birth certificate, a copy of your court or your prison records, any marriage or divorce certificates that you have, and your military service if applicable. Even if your prison or court record has been expunged, we also still want you to upload the documents from your original arrest or your original court case. Additionally, if you've ever resided in another country besides the United States for over 6 months since you were age 16, we also want to see a police record from every place that you've resided as 16 and above. Once you go to your interview, you may be requested to have additional documents with you. Or if you did not bring your original documents with you to your interview, we're going to request the original documents. Just so you know, every document that you upload into the CEAC should be brought to your immigrant visa interview in original. If you don't bring it in original, we're going to send you back and ask you to return the original document to us. My colleague Kayana is going to tell you a little bit more about how to return those documents.
Good afternoon again, Jamaica. Now, once the consular officer asks you to return documents to them, first of all, they'll give you a checklist as to what is actually needed. Now, you can go on that checklist and verify the information that is needed. They'll also advise how is it that you should actually send back the information to the courier service. Now, the courier service, you must register with the courier service. And this is done before the petition, when the petition actually comes to Jamaica, your petitioner will register for you. So most applicants that come to the embassy are actually registered. So the only thing that you need to is to just follow the instruction on the checklist. You will need to take that checklist to the courier location, and that courier location is located at shop number 23, 115 Old Oak Road, along with instruction at the back as to how is it that you must also print off what we call a courier authorization certificate, so that when you go to the drop-off location, you will not have a problem.
Just a reminder to the public, you'll soon see a link scrolling below that will discuss how to actually register for the courier service. So please follow that link to learn more information, okay? And so I have a question for April first. April, you mentioned that someone having lived in a country since the age of 16 they need to submit a police certificate. What if, I have a parent who is nearing their 70s and they lived in, Curacao in the 1960s? Does that have to still be submitted? Do they need to go through the process of getting a police certificate from another island they haven't been back to in decades?
So the answer to that is simple. Yes. If you lived in another country since you were age 16 for more than 6 months, we want to see a police certificate from that country, regardless if it was last year, 10 years ago, multiple decades ago. If you were over age 16 and living abroad, we need to see a police certificate in original. If you have a police certificate that is written in another language besides English, we also require a certified translation of that certificate.
And what if they have that certificate, but they got it, 10 years ago? Is that certificate still valid?
The certificate will still be valid if you have not returned to that country since receiving your police certificate. If you have returned to that country since receiving your police certificate, we'll need an updated police certificate for that country.
Okay. And Kayana, what are some common issues that you see when applicants go through the courier process? Are there certain hurdles that seem to trip up more applicants than others?
That's the registration process?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, for registration, it's normally on the website and you choose your email address. That's how you get access to the username and password. The most common mistake that applicants make when they are actually sending in documents via the courier service is that they don't take the checklist when they are going to the location, and they don't print off what is called the courier certification. So if that is not done, then the drop-off location, or what we call the courier location, will not accept those documents. So you have to make sure that when you're going to the courier location, you have the checklist that the embassy provide to you or the consular officer provide to you, along with the courier in authorization sheet.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So even if all the documents are there, if they don't have the checklist with them, they won't accept it.
They won't accept it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, remember that it's a real shame to have to be turned around just because you didn't bring the checklist with you. So remember yourselves, if you have other relatives that are going through this process, make sure to remind them because we want to try to get this process as efficient as possible and get families reunited with their loved ones back in the US. The next question I have is, I've heard that you need to get a medical certification. Can you get that from any doctor or any hospital, or how can you go through the medical process and the immigrant visa process?
All right, so let me try and attempt that one, April. So we have one certified medical facility, which is Andrews Hospital on Oak Road. That's the only one. There's a website that is provided that you go online and choose your own appointment. You choose the date and the time. The medical facility will send you information as to what is needed. So you're going to the medical facility and you know what you're supposed to bring, because they will tell you that you need the vaccines, you need to carry your passport, you need to carry photos, and provide all the information. Once you go there, you need to fill out a form, which is a registration form. Please make sure that is done before. The form is actually on the website and it's on the medical website. So please make sure when you go to that location, you carry the form with you, because it wastes time for the staff to be sending you back outside to fill out the registration form. So make sure that it's done before, just to that they don't have any delays, right? The website is pretty simple. You go on it, you click on it, you put in your information, your case number, the date of your interview, and then you just select the time that you want to come to your medical appointment.
What about, and thank you very much, what about if, there's a mother and 2 children and only 2 of the 3 have gotten their medical appointment before their actual visa interview? What happens? Can the whole family still go for their visa interview?
Unfortunately, the medical facility will not accept persons without the appointment letter. You must have an appointment letter to go to the medical facility. What most times happens is that they reach out to the embassy just to verify if this applicant will be able to do have an appointment, and then we'll advise them, yes, they do have an appointment, and at that time they'll go ahead and do the medical. But you must have your appointment letter to go to the medical facility.
Got it. Got it. And April, when people actually come in for the interview, what are some frequent follow-up items that are pending? Like what is requested by the officer usually that applicants need to submit after the fact?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the biggest issue we see here at the interview is when an applicant does not bring the original documents with them. We need your original police certificate. We need your original birth certificate. If, for example, your petitioner is your child, make sure you bring that adult child's birth certificate with you. If your petitioner is your step-parent and they were married here in Jamaica, be sure to bring the original marriage certificate showing the relationship between your biological parent and your step-parent petitioner with you to the interview. Additionally, going back to what I said earlier about court records, if your record has been expunged, we still need to see the court record. So we're going to ask you for the original court records or arrest records, even if your record has been expunged. So be sure when you're checking your documents before you leave home that you have all of the original copies and that you have any original record relevant to your petition ready to go for when you arrive here.
And what happens if, you know, I had my birth certificate in my car and my car was broken into, or I had all of my valid original documents in my house and there was a house fire? Is there any way to avoid submitting original documents?
Unfortunately, no, but you are able to get new copies here in Jamaica of those original documents, and you can submit those once you have the new copies.
Okay, thank you very much. I was wondering, is there ever a time when an applicant is qualified, but then due to a change in family relationship or growth in the family, they suddenly don't become qualified for a specific immigrant visa class? And I'll address this one to April.
So that does happen. For example, if your parent applied for an F1 visa for an unmarried adult child, and that child marries at some point after the petition is filed, that child is no longer qualified for an F1 visa for an unmarried adult child. Therefore, they change to a different visa category, for example, an F3, a married child of a US citizen. So if you no longer meet the qualifications, the basic qualifications, that is for the visa class that your petitioner petitioned you for, will have to either change your visa category or you'll no longer be able to use a derivative visa category for that particular visa. We do see this from time to time at the embassy, unfortunately, and we do our best to explain to you in your interview what has happened with your case. But if you ever have a change in your married status or a change in your relationship status that could affect your visa, try to notify NVC or the embassy as soon as possible.
And you mentioned this acronym NVC. What is NVC and what is their role in this immigrant visa process?
So NVC is the National Visa Center, and they will be the initial group at the State Department that approves the visa and then sends it onward to us here in Kingston. NVC does all of the scheduling for our appointments here in Kingston. And so once you get the notification from NVC that the State Department has received your application from the Department of Homeland Security and that your case is now ready to be have documents uploaded to the CEAC, again, the Consular Electronic Application Center. They'll have the information and get the initial documents together to send onward to us here in Kingston. However, NVC is not going to be able to send your document or your case forward until they see it as documentarily complete. So do make sure you get in your documents as soon as possible.
And I can't stress this enough. We frequently see families where they believe their application is current, They are frustrated as to why they haven't been scheduled for an interview yet. And then it turns out that one out of the many documents is missing. And so that file can't be forwarded on and scheduled here at the US Embassy. So make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's. Even if you're, 100% sure that you've submitted everything, go back, review, and be 110% sure that everything is in there in order to be sure that you are documentarily complete and able to be scheduled for an interview here at the US Embassy. Where you've reached our midpoint here in the show, I'm going to briefly remind everyone that you can always follow us at US Embassy JA on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And remember that we have the show at 1 o'clock local time on the third Wednesday of every month. Today, we're talking about immigrant visa process. Next month, we're going to be talking about how to avoid fraud during the consular application process. So we're going to reserve the second half of the show to general Q&A from the public. So remember, if you're watching this, you can enter questions into the comments and we will try to address as many as we can. All right, so I think first and foremost, we've had questions about, it's been a year already from Olive, and she doesn't know how much longer she's gonna have to wait for the immigrant visa process to start for her family. Where can Olive look to find this information? And I'll ask this question to Kayana.
Well, based on her visa category, she can actually go to travelstate.gov and check the visa bulletin board. You must know your priority because your priority date is the same as your filing date. So based on that, you can look at your priority date and your visa category, and it actually give you a date as to where they actually reach with the processing of the visa.
Right, and those are key words right there, visa bulletin. If you're trying to find this information, your go-to hub for this information is travel.state.gov, which is the general information portal from the US State Department for various purposes. The visa bulletin is a table that is published monthly, and depending on the immigrant visa class, your timing will completely depend on what's in that table, what your country of origin is. In Jamaica specifically, there's no carve out or specific dates for Jamaican nationals. So look at the general timelines indicated in the table. If you are of a different nationality, make sure that the timelines apply to you. And it completely depends on your relationship to the principal petitioner or the principal applicant. If you are the spouse of a US citizen, your timeline is going to be a lot shorter than the sibling of a US citizen. So look at that bulletin. The timelines vary greatly. Make sure that you are confident in what your immigrant visa classification is and of that filing date, right? So something important to consider is when your application becomes current. So you'll see like years such as like February 2007, right? And what does that mean? That means that right now, NVC is reviewing applications that were filed February 2007, okay? If you filed after that, that just means you have to wait until your filing date is on or before that date shown in that visa bulletin.
And a key point to remember, Andrew, is that National Visa Center will advise when your case is current. So like around 90 days before your case becomes current, they'll ask you to upload documents, start telling you that your case is now current, and they want you to take this first step, pay the visa fee, pay the affidavit of support fee, and then it tell you how to move on.
And how did they generally advise? Is it by email?
By email.
Okay.
Everything that National Visa Center does is by email. So make sure applicants have your correct email address or a proper email address or a working email address that you actually have access to.
And this is very important because nobody from the U.S. Embassy in Kingston will be WhatsApping you to let you know that your application is current. So it might have been 5 years, 10 years more that you've submitted that email. And I, for example, know that some of the email addresses I used 10 years ago, I would be embarrassed to share today. And I don't even use anymore. So make sure that if your application is going to be current soon, or you think it will be, go in and check, make sure that that email address is still working so that the NVC can get in touch with you and you can get started on the process when it's your time. We have Charisse from YouTube asking, I have an autistic 17-year-old. Does he still need to provide a police certificate? And I'll ask April that.
Yes, any applicant over the age of 16 needs to provide a police certificate for any place they've lived over 6 months. So regardless of any kind of need an applicant may have, if you're over age 16, we do need a police certificate.
And remember that family members can always assist. If this is a situation of true incapacitation, you can always have a power of attorney that will enable you to act on behalf of that family member. So there is a path forward in those situations. And ultimately, the requirements of those over 16 are equal across the board. Okay. We now have Anna K from YouTube. She's asking, what can I do if a derivative on a family preference case cannot migrate with their mother because the petitioner, the father, naturalized? And I'll ask April that again.
So there are a couple of options if a petitioner naturalizes for the family. There can be a request made to USCIS to keep the particular visa category that allows derivatives and for a family member to remain as an F2 case or an FX case. But those are evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and there's no guarantee that an applicant or a petitioner may keep the original visa case that they applied for. Typically what happens is the petition then becomes a spouse petition and then a child petition. So that means there's actually two applications available, one for the spouse and one for the child. And what happens is it goes from a single petition for a family member of an LPR to the petition of a US citizen for an immediate family member. And so what'll happen is you'll be informed that your petition no longer qualifies for an LPR petition, but rather for a US citizen petition, and we'll move from there.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a couple non-immigrant visa questions, so I'll address those before we switch back to immigrant visa questions. So somebody's asking, do I need to come in for an interview if I already have a visitor visa? Now, Andrea on Facebook, I'm not sure what kind of visa you're applying for now. The short and quick answer is most likely yes. If you're applying to an immigrant visa, you absolutely will need to come in for an interview. If you are simply applying to renew your visitor visa, depending on your situation, you may be eligible for an interview waiver, and that is ultimately decided at the US State Department, and you will be notified if you need to come in for an interview or not following the submission of your application. Then we have Suzanne from YouTube asking when E3 employment visas will become current. Now, I assume, Suzanne, you're referring to the E3 Australian treaty investor treaty visa, which functions similarly to the H-1B program. E3 visas don't have a visa bulletin like immigrant visas do. So you are free to apply as long as you qualify for an E3 visa at any time. And then we have Ventolin from Facebook stating that her US visa that she needs for medical reasons was stolen. Does she need to reapply again, and does she need to pay another fee? Absolutely. If you are able to, please report the visa and passport as stolen as soon as possible. But in the meantime, you will need to submit an application again. You will need to pay the fee again. You will need to be interviewed again, and make sure on the application form you indicate that the visa was stolen, because we need that record in order to prevent misuse of that visa or passport in the future. Now, shifting gears back to immigrant visas, I have a question from Peter, and I'll direct it to Kayana.
Sure.
He's asking, is there a deadline for when I have to submit my follow-up documents?
Normally it's 1 year.
1 year.
1 year. After 1 year, the case actually gets terminated. So make sure if you're asked to submit any documents, you do it within that 1 year period.
And if there's extenuating circumstances, who should the applicant contact in order to request any extension?
For that request, you can email kingstonIV@state.gov, and we'll put that information in the system.
Okay, and you can also find that email address in the comments. That is Kingston, I as in Indigo, V as in Victor, @state.gov, and you can email that email address if you have any extenuating circumstances that require a extension to that timeline. But please try to keep up with these processes. People wait years in order to be able to apply. So it's a real shame if all of that waiting goes to naught just because a document was requested and you didn't submit it within that 1 year period. We now have Kayla asking, and I'll turn this to April, though I didn't know that taxes were requested. She's saying, I already sent you in my taxes 3 years ago. Why do I need to bring them in again?
So we need as updated tax information as possible. So when your petitioner petitions for you and they have a joint sponsor or their own tax documents, we need the most updated tax documents. There can be some time between when your case is approved and you're asked to upload documents to when you actually come in front of us for your immigrant visa interview. If that's the case, we may request that you give us updated tax documents. Some of the easiest tax documents to acquire are the W-2 and the 1040, or the IRS tax transcript for the most recent tax year. Any set of those documents will tell us the tax information that we need to know to support the affidavit of support from either your petitioner or your joint sponsor.
Thank you very much. And we have a question from Enoch. How long does it take to get the visa back? Now, I think that, again, the answer is it depends. Really, there's just so many personal cases that vary, right? Like there's so many different reasons why your application might be pending processing. But really you'll need to refer directly to the unit that you're applying to. So Enoch, if you applied for a visitor visa type, you can email Kingston N as in Nancy, IV@state.gov. And if you are waiting for a visa or a response of some kind and you're applying for an immigrant visa, you can email Kingston I as in Indigo, V as in Victor @state.gov. But sometimes people apply for an immigrant visa and they have some need for travel, but their passport is here at the U.S. Embassy. Kayana, how can people request their passport back?
Well, normally it's the same procedure. They email us, KingstonIV@state.gov, and we email them back in return and explain to them that your passport will be available. Sometimes we ask them to come to the embassy based on the need of when they want to travel. Other time we send it out by the courier for them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And for those coming to the U.S. Embassy, remember you do need to bring a valid form of ID. We understand that we're holding on to your passport, but the guards at the gates don't have access to it. And so you do need to bring another form of ID in order to gain entry. I'll now refer to a question from Lyle. and this will be the last one of the day. He's saying, I applied for a visa early last year and I never heard back after the interview. What should I do? Well, Lyle, I assume that this is an immigrant visa. So if that's the case, we'll address it as such. If Lyle came in for the interview and hasn't heard back, what are his options for recourse, or where could his application possibly be? April, I'll ask you to answer this.
So if you're looking for an update on your visa process, you're always welcome to email us. You can also get additional information on how to email us on the Visa Navigator page on the U.S. Embassy website. That will tell you ways you can contact us in order to check on your case. However, frequently what we find in the Immigrant Visa Unit section is that we've asked for a document from either the petitioner or from the applicant in front of us, and we have not yet received that document. And so if you're still waiting to hear back from either the U.S. Embassy or the courier service with your passport and visa, do double check that we didn't already request additional documents from you. If we already requested additional documents from you, the ball is in your court. You need to return those documents to us before we can move forward. Under US law, many of the documents that are requested of you are absolutely required for your application. And so we can't move forward with your application until you return documents to us. If you need to be reminded of which documents you need to provide, again, just reach out to the Immigrant Visa Unit section and we'll be able to tell you which documents are still outstanding.
Thank you very much. All right, I want to thank the public for tuning in to us today. This concludes the show that we have for you on immigrant visa applications. We look forward to joining you again next month on May 15th at 1 o'clock local time in Jamaica to discuss how to avoid fraud during the consular application process. I want to thank my colleagues, Kayana and April. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you all again. Follow us at US Embassy JA on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you and goodbye.